Huh, still single at your age. Pathetic. For an old maid like you, I met my ex-husband at a fancy Chinese restaurant. Despite his persistent sarcastic remarks, we exchanged words, and then my sister, who eloped with someone else, appeared. When my ex-husband announced he'd be marrying her soon, I laughed at him mockingly. "Oh, didn't I tell you?" Feeling on top of the world, my ex-husband was caught off guard when I made a shot-talking confession. My name is Michelle Smith. I'm a 39-year-old housewife. I've been married to my husband Mike, who works in the transportation business, for about 2 years. We met at work, where I was previously an office clerk. I took a liking to Mike's lively and cheerful demeanor and made the first move on him. I found his easygoing and manly charisma very appealing. It was love at first sight. Upon hearing my feelings, he reciprocated, and we got married in a short span of 6 months. I thought he was a kind and pleasant person while we were dating. However, after our marriage, he turned into someone else entirely. It became routine for him to shower me with abusive words, and there were times when his actions made me feel like I wasn't even treated as a human being. I never imagined married life would be so tough and painful. Every day became gloomy, and I gradually started to fear. Mike is a truck driver, but his job is specifically as a light truck delivery driver. I wish he'd been a long-haul driver so he would have been away from home more often, giving me some breathing space. As a light truck driver, his job entails delivering many loads to various places in a single day, so he usually comes home in the evening. Early in our marriage, I had expressed my desire to work. I think I want to contribute to our finances. If both of us work, we can save more, and it'll be useful if we have kids. The moment I said that, Mike slammed his beer glass onto the table and started berating me. "You say my earnings aren't enough, huh? I never intended to imply that." Probably because he was drunk and overreacting, I found him terrifying. He seemed ready to hurl the glass at me at any moment, so I hurriedly tried to placate him. No, I just don't want to be a burden to you, that's all. You're probably looking down on me inside. Who do you think allows us to live this comfortably? Even if you work, you wouldn't earn much. Don't act all high and mighty." I realized after marrying him that Mike has extreme paranoia and wild mood swings. I never saw this side of him when we dated, so it was unexpected. Could I really spend the rest of my life with someone like this? The thought intensified my anxiety. But another incident fanned the flames of my worries. I'm truly happy Michelle married into our family. Mike rarely brought girlfriends home, so I was worried he'd never marry. This happened during a Thanksgiving gathering at my in-laws' house. They are genuinely kind people who dote on me a lot. When we got married, they were over the moon, as if they had gained a daughter. I got along well with my mother-in-law, and my father-in-law was also very kind to me. One of the few consolations in my suffocating married life was dining out with my in-laws. However, in front of them, Mike began making a mockery of me. That turning point was during a family reunion. Must be nice, huh? Having a beauty like Michelle. Look at my wife. See that flabby belly of hers? A male relative began making fun of his wife, drawing laughter from the crowd. Beside him, his wife playfully pinched his belly and chimed in, giving a sort of husband-wife comedy routine, lifting the mood. Then my husband turned the tables and decided to poke fun at me. "What are you talking about, uncle? Michelle looks so childlike, hardly womanly. Your wife looks way more elegant and mature." I was left speechless by this unexpected comment and revelation. The male relative said, "Come on, cut it out," but everyone seemed to find it hilarious. The only ones who looked concerned were my in-laws. "Michelle, go to the kitchen, help my wife with dinner preparations. There my father-in-law, seeing my distress, gave me these instructions as a way to escape the scene. Grateful, I rushed to the kitchen accompanied by my mother-in-law. Tears streamed down my face due to the overwhelming incident, but my mother-in-law comforted me as if she were my own mother. As for my father-in-law, he stepped in and chastised everyone, insisting they apologize to me. All did except for my heavily intoxicated husband, who remained defiant. Why should a husband apologize to his wife? That's why Dad always gets ridiculed by Mom. Can't you have some dignity? And for some reason, this led to a father-son argument. The gathering ended early that day, and from then on, the relationship between my husband and his father deteriorated. My visits to my husband's family home became infrequent. Life after that was a living nightmare. I lost my only source of joy and began to feel weak and lost day by day. Even daily chores felt monumental, and whenever my husband remembered that day, he'd shout at me. You must have said something unnecessary to them. Thanks to you, I was humiliated in front of everyone. What are you going to do about it? Fearing his temper, I became constantly on edge. Living on the 10th floor of an apartment building, I often thought if jumping would offer an escape from my misery. When we're mentally drained, making rational decisions becomes a challenge, and I felt exactly that way. It was then, during one of these despairing moments, my sister visited. You haven't been in touch recently. I got worried. Michelle, you look awful, my elder sister Catherine, who's 3 years older, said. She worked nights in her previous job. She was the most sought after, probably because she looked much younger than her age. It was rare for her to drop by unannounced. Turns out she was in the neighborhood checking on the renovations of her new club and decided to stop by. Something happened with your husband, my sister said. Catherine and I were the best of buddies growing up. When I got married, nobody was happier than Catherine. She cried tears of joy and celebrated with me like no other. Just want to disappear, I whimpered. Wah, what happened? Seeing the distraught look on Catherine's face, tears welled up in my eyes as I conveyed the painful situation I was in. Every day felt like I was being emotionally abused by my husband. It felt like living in a prison, a life full of pain and despair. There were moments I thought of ending it all. Overwhelmed by it all, Kath, after hearing all of this, showed visible anger, saying she's going to go yell at my husband right then and there. But just imagining what could happen to me if she did made me even more scared. Tears streaming down my face, I pleaded with her not to confront him. Seeing my reaction, Catherine regained her composure and started brainstorming what could be done. After a silence between us, something seemed to click in Catherine's mind. With a bright expression, she whispered a plan into my ear. Hearing her plan, I exclaimed in surprise and asked if she was out of her mind. You think that'll actually work? Who do you think I am? Catherine said, confidence oozing from her every pore. I trusted Catherine to pull it off, but the risks if her plan was discovered made me anxious. Don't you want to get out of this and be free? Seeing me unable to make a decision, Catherine turned serious and told me it was ultimately up to my courage. Hearing that, I made up my mind and agreed to her plan. From that day on, Catherine came over nearly every day. People who are emotionally abusive tend to act all high and mighty in public. If I'm around, he won't be able to pull anything on you, Michelle, right? Saying this, she visited me frequently over the next few months, until her new shop was ready. At first, my husband seemed unsure of Catherine's frequent visits, but he seemed to enjoy the drinks they shared every evening, gradually warming up to her. Catherine made sure Mike drank enough to get really drunk and stayed with him until he fell asleep. You're always joining me for drinks, so feel free to stay the night anytime. Mike, now quite fond of Catherine, began to show her affection he never showed me, even trying to stop her from leaving. But Catherine always declined his offer with a polite smile, assuring him she'd be back the next day. For Mike, time with Catherine seemed like a dream. He was so enchanted by her that he seemed to have forgotten all about me. But then, when Catherine's shop was about to have its grand reopening, an incident occurred. "I'm divorcing you." Out of the blue, Mike declared. He wanted a divorce. Naturally, I was shocked by his words and demanded an explanation. "Why all of a sudden?" "I've found someone I care about more than you. I want to be happy with her. I want you to leave." I flat out refused to accept his selfish reasoning. However, Mike seemed to have expected this and coldly mentioned hiring a lawyer. A meeting with a lawyer present took place a few days later. Even there, Mike hurled unbelievable accusations at me. "You just want money, right? Do you want the property? I'll give whatever you ask, so let's end this in front of anyone." Mike made it clear he no longer had feelings for me. He seemed to want to end our marriage so badly that he didn't mind paying a hefty sum to make it happen. The lawyer, probably feeling uncomfortable, showed me the average amounts for such cases. "You really don't have much affection for me, do you?" I could tell where your heart was, easily figuring out who you're thinking of and who you wish to spend your life with. I lowered my head, realizing resisting was futile, and accepted the divorce terms. "Fine, but I demand the division of the property." He probably thinks he can just earn it back. Mike, oblivious and elated at the thought of a smooth divorce, yet watching him, I let out a mysterious smirk, and without him catching on, the divorce proceedings went underway. However, while I may have accepted it, it was Mike's parents who firmly opposed it. Later, when we went to inform his parents, they shouted at Mike and spoke in my defense. "What on earth are you thinking? Exactly, Michelle has been so dedicated to this family, and you talk about divorce and having someone else. You can't be serious," his mother said. They tried to convince Mike, while his father, with a flushed face, was visibly angered and scolded him. But their words seemed to be just noise to him. Annoyed, he dismissively responded, "It doesn't matter if you accept it or not. She's already agreed to it. It's because you pushed her into a corner with lawyers. They must have really not wanted us to divorce. They've always cherished me like their own child, and the thought of separation was painful to them." I could feel their desperate pleas, and I felt guilty for betraying them. I love them too. I would have loved to live as their daughter if only things didn't turn out this way with Mike. Regret was the only thing that filled my heart, and I couldn't hold back the tears. "People like you are so damn annoying. I'm done with her. I'm going to marry someone I truly care for and be happy." "Stop nagging me," Mike, now completely enraged by his parents' words, started shouting back in defiance. Naturally, they couldn't accept his decision, and Mike was disowned right there and then. And so, Mike left his parents' home, apparently eloping with his love interest, and our divorce was finalized. Half a year passed. I was dining at an upscale Chinese restaurant, invited by someone, and enjoying a meal with my parents. "Isn't that Michelle?" The one who called out to me was none other than Mike. I had gone outside to make a call and bumped into him in the hallway. "Long time no see," he said. His condescending tone hadn't changed. My face must have shown my disgust. "What's with that face? If you've got something to say, spit it out." He wasn't shouting because we were in public, but he still looked down at me with cold eyes. I held back my anger and turned my face away. Acting all high and mighty when you can't even stand up for yourself. "Did you manage to find a boyfriend after our split?" Mocking my demeanor, Mike sneered at me. I knew this side of him only after our marriage, and I regretted not realizing it sooner. "It doesn't concern you anymore," I replied. Without even confirming if I was in a relationship, Mike, with his usual sly grin, kept on taunting me. "Really? Still single? Pretty pathetic for an old hag." Mike peered into my face with an expression that screamed he felt he'd won at life even more so than before our split. I was about to give him a piece of my mind when, "Oh, Michelle, Mike didn't expect to see you two here." My sister Catherine walked into the store, calling out to both of us. "Catherine, perfect timing. I was just about to share some news with Michelle here." The smug look on Mike's face was almost disgusting as he snaked an arm around Catherine, drawing her close. I just stood there, not letting his actions fluster me, my gaze icy cold as I watched the scene unfold. "I thought I'd tell her first that we're going to get married," he bragged, pulling Catherine even closer. I had always suspected that his feelings for Catherine were the real reason he wanted a divorce, but looking at them now with emotionless eyes, Mike, still not realizing the gravity of the situation, shot me a smug grin. "Sorry, I guess. I mean, I'm going to be living the dream with her. But hey, you're not too bad looking. Maybe with a bit of effort. I'm sorry, Mike. I can't marry you." Gently shaking off his arm, Catherine dropped the bombshell with a smile. His face was a picture of shock, unable to comprehend her statement. "The truth is, I never had any feelings for you." "Wait, what? What are you saying? Didn't she tell you?" I couldn't resist, my voice dripping with mock confusion. As I savored every moment of his confusion, "What do you mean didn't tell me the whole thing?" Mike was a plot, Catherine, and I hatched to make sure we divorced. And as I walked over to join my sister, we exchanged amused smiles. Right, even witnessing this, Mike couldn't fathom what was going on. His words came out jumbled. "Was this all just a play? Thanks to Catherine here, I got quite the alimony from you. Really grateful for that." Rejecting his initial proposal for divorce was all part of a plan to get as much property as possible from him. It was all Catherine's idea. I was eager to divorce, but didn't want to raise suspicion. That's why I played along. "No way, Catherine would never say that. Why not?" Struggling to come to terms with the truth, Mike babbled on, refusing to believe my words. I tilted my head in confusion and asked, "Why do you say that? Why would Catherine say something like that? She said she's going to marry me." "Well, if you took my sales pitch so seriously, I was just doing my job entertaining a client." Catherine responded to Mike's comment, her brows furrowed in feigned concern. She touched her cheek with an exaggeratedly innocent gesture, sighing softly as she spoke. "I'd only entertained you as a client. I never had any feelings for you. I'm sorry if I gave you the wrong impression. So, you've been fooling me this whole time. For the past 6 months?" Mike, always trying to one-up everyone. It was kind of cute, actually. Mockingly, my sister spoke with a derisive laugh, the ex-husband, completely fooled by her theatrical performance, displayed his anger and raised his voice despite being inside a shop. All those words about wanting to be with me, asking me to divorce Michelle, were all lies. Who in their right mind would want to be with someone like you, an emotionally abusive husband? "What did you just say?" The sharp words of my sister infuriated my ex-husband, who began breathing heavily in agitation, while cautiously watching out for any signs. My ex-husband might become physically aggressive. I observed their exchange and discreetly reached for my phone. It was hard keeping up the charade for half a year, but thankfully you're simple-minded. It wasn't like I could just stay married to you. In truth, my sister was already married when I was with my ex-husband. She has a husband who works as a bodyguard. To ensnare my ex-husband, my sister persuaded him by saying she was also going to get a divorce. From the perspective of my ex, who had never been popular in his life, the fact that someone was chasing after him so much was a delightful feeling. At the same time, he reveled in the superiority of being able to take someone away from another. Essentially, he fell right into my sister's trap. So, about you taking time to get that divorce, that was obviously a lie. As you can see, my marriage is perfectly fine. At that moment, a man emerged from behind, walking towards us with a smile. Pleasure to meet you. Seems like my wife has been causing you some trouble. You can't be serious. This is my husband. I invited him today to introduce him to you, my sister, with her radiant smile, made a point to show off by linking arms with my brother-in-law, exuding happiness. My ex-husband looked dumbfounded, his face a mix of anger and sadness. It's a shame, isn't it? Wasting half a year only to end up being thrown out of your own home. It's so pitiful I can't even bear to look. As my ex-husband seemed dazed from the shock, he tried to lash out at me, reaching to grab my collar, but my brother-in-law swiftly intervened, handling him like he was a mere child. What do you know about what I've gone through this past year chasing after her? Do you understand? I don't, and I don't want to. You play with people's lives and then act all high and mighty. Do you understand how much pain you've caused me? Facing my ex-husband's aggressive stance, my voice broke with anger and tears as I finally let out all the frustrations I'd bottled up. The way you ridiculed me in front of our family, your attitude towards your in-laws, all your actions during our marriage. I will never forgive you. You're going to get a taste of hell. I then turned around and called out, "Please come out." Emerging from the room behind me were not just my ex-husband's parents, but also my own parents and even my husband's relatives. Now everyone can see your true colors and just how pathetic you truly are. Ignoring my ex's questioning gaze, I played a voice recording I had received from my sister. It had him speaking to her in a disgustingly sweet manner. "Are you really going to break up with Michelle?" "Of course. I don't need someone useless who can only do house chores. I prefer someone mature and attractive like you, Catherine." His sleazy voice was so palpable that it made my skin crawl. Even though it was nauseating to hear, I did not stop the playback. In front of the entire family, my ex-husband was being made an example of. "Don't you love Michelle?" "Of course not. She's nothing more than a maid to me. I'd only married her because she would be a notch in my belt. No emotional connection there." Everyone was visibly repulsed by his comments. He started to create a scene, demanding the recording be turned off, but my burly brother-in-law wasn't having it. He restrained him effortlessly, ensuring he couldn't interfere. "She's so obedient, just a little threat, and she'll do anything. She's more like a servant, someone I can throw away any time. I have no attachments to her. Having heard the evidence of the emotional abuse he directed at me, his in-laws were furious. Everyone present unanimously criticized him. "You're a disgrace to this family. How could you say such things about your dear wife? You're pathetic, even for a man. I'm embarrassed to even call you family." As everyone looked at him with contempt, I spoke coldly, "Nobody's on your side anymore. Stay away from her family. I never want to see your face again." Having masterfully executed this public reprimand, I stopped the voice recorder and asked my brother-in-law to throw him out. My ex tried to retaliate, but to no avail. He was forcibly ejected from the premises. After that, the store was locked up, but my husband made a scene out front, demanding it be opened. Eventually, he was reported and taken to the police station. My sister and I, having exposed my husband's wrongdoings, gave each other a high five and shared our joy of having achieved our revenge. It felt like a celebration as we ordered food at the restaurant, and everyone showed sympathy for the hardships I had endured. Reserving the whole place was the right call. Everyone could relax and enjoy without feeling restrained, said my sister Catherine, who had arranged it. I expressed my gratitude to Catherine, who had helped me through everything, and I savored a meal with her for the first time in a while. So I got my revenge on my ex-husband. After that, it seemed like he was almost stalking Catherine, got reported to the police again, and apparently my brother-in-law Mike gave him a taste of his own medicine. After that, Mike was too scared to show his face around my brother-in-law. 13 years have passed since, and now I'm handling the accounting at Catherine's store. I'm still in touch with my ex-in-laws and occasionally dine with them. I'm deeply grateful to Catherine for helping me out of my shell. I'll repay this favor someday. With that thought, today I'm going to work hard alongside Catherine.